working properly, and, they're having a difficult time finding one. And it will take, about 8 months for them to get it, so as soon as they get it in and I get a total on that, I'll let you know. But right now, we're, a little over $6,000 into the backup one, but I think it's worth it to have it. And it doesn't make sense to have that big thing sitting there and it not be operational.
Did I hear you said 8 months?
8 months.
Alright.
Can't believe in the United States that we can't manufacture a brass relief valve faster than 8 months, but we can.
Gotcha.
I put an invitation for masonry work in the Sentinel, and I sent the invitations directly to Autobahn and Western. We're the only companies that ever bid on this project. I've met with both of them. We've done a walk down of the facility. So I'll post that in the Sentinel. It'll run through the first part of March. And then I have specific deadlines that anybody wanting to place a bid, they have to come out and do a walkthrough with me, and have to provide a bid at some point, so I'll keep you posted on that.
They're both union contractors, right?
Yes,
Okay,
union, and they understand they have to pay prevailing wage.
okay. I was just looking for that note here so that people, obviously tax exempt prevailing wage. So, okay.
High school boys baseball trip, I had mentioned that the TCSV boys baseball team will play in Busch Stadium on April 1st. They will play immediately following the Cardinals game that starts at 1:15. Just as a reminder to the board, our current policy 6240 states that only overnight trips or trips farther than a 200-mile radius need board approval. And I put it on here as kind of a convenience or a courtesy heads up to you guys and to announce it on YouTube and the Sentinel.
Are we, and then is it something that the school is providing the transportation and?
We're gonna look to help out with some of the funding from, our high school activity account. They're gonna split it, last I heard, maybe up to 4 different ways.
Okay.
So, the district will not be on the hook for it. But we
I just
do
didn't know
have-
if we were running buses or,
No, they're gonna actually try to run a charter
okay,
for it, so.
alright.
Next, the 23-24 enrollment projections. I kind of based enrollment for next year, or at least the projected enrollment on our current enrollment. And as of right now, I'm projecting a decrease of 4 students district-wide, which is not too bad. We had dropped quite a few students over the course of the last few years, and maybe that's leveled off a little bit. But I provided those numbers to you. Do you have any questions on?
Have we gained anything significant, numbers wise?
In any
In any of the
classroom?
buildings?
No. The big, class has finally transitioned to the high school. We have 64 ninth graders. That's our biggest class, or will transition. Okay, so. Primary minus pre-K is at 109, intermediate building 134, middle school 134, high school 200, for a total enrollment of 577. Minus or less pre-K. Less.
And that pre-K is 3rd and 4th graders, so we're still only looking like 30, essentially 31, right?
What's that?
Not 3rd and 4th, 3 and 4 year olds.
3 and 4 year olds. And
In the pre-K number, cause that's a big number, but that's not all one class, right?
Right.
No, it's split up into 4 different or 4 different sections, 2 morning, 2 afternoon.
Okay,
They have a minimum of 15 we have to fill, max of 20 per, compliance.
for the building, okay.
speaking of pre-K, the screenings will take place on March 13th through the 15th at the Illiopolis Christian Church or the Camp Wilson Foursquare Church in Harristown. This is by appointment only, and parents will need to call the primary building to make an appointment. And last but not least are the school improvement plans. I have asked each of the principals to provide a brief synopsis of their school improvement plan And, we'll start with Mr. Field, Dr. Field, and we'll work our way down the line.
Our school improvement plan's morphed over the years, to what you see now. We've used this format the last few years. We used to go about where we would have like a separate reading goal, a separate math goal, a separate PBIS goal. And then when we had special projects like, crisis and safety plan, things like that, we would have a separate goal for all these things. And we worked to try to condense things down once we kind of had fewer things to do and more specialized things to focus on, to kind of drop it into these three bins of culture, learning, and systems. So our culture goal deals with our PBIS numbers, and really a lot of our targets here are set by, the PBIS system and what they consider, to be green. So students with low behavior occurrences, sticking at 80% or better of our students only having 0 to 1 major, 15% to have 2 to 5, and 5% or less to have 6 or plus major referrals, which would be really low incidence kids with high behavior options. And so we look at that throughout the year. Then we also look at our interventions for tier 2 and tier 3 at those levels, and how they're being successful with that. And then those are really set by those tiered fidelity systems that PBIS puts out for us. So we don't really have to do a lot of thought process on what are those targets gonna be. These are the best practice that we look at. So we look into those things about what are we gonna do to help support our students, in that, what do we do to help increase staff morale and to make sure that the teachers are staying informed about, what they need to do and staying focused on what they need to do. Learning is where we have put like our fast bridge goals. We set some targets in terms of SAT and stuff within that, and then we have tasks underneath that we do to try to facilitate those things. And then systems usually is a smaller one, where we try to pick every year kind of, what things we're really gonna focus on this year. The last couple of years, we've really been trying to re-up the handbook and check for things in the extracurricular code, look at things in crisis and safety that Mr. Meadows and Mr. Fleming have been going, to Macon Piatt County regional crisis meetings where they've talked about some different things. So we try to bring some of those things back, to work on here. But each year we pretty much start with, we try to do like a SWOT analysis, which is we look at what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what our opportunities are, and what we feel like are threats, which is all kind of cookie cutter organizational planning stuff. It's from the Baldrige criteria. And so we try to use those as our template for coming through and then making this. And so we come together as a leadership team. All of us kind of talk to other members of the faculty and stuff as we're planning this, and then we try to get it in place, and then we reevaluate our targets every quarter, every semester, depending on what our target is. So, but it's a good tool, and then we always assess it at the end of the year to see, how successful we were, or if we weren't successful in a certain area, how do we remediate that and come back better. So just a good measuring tool.
For the middle school, obviously since it's my first year, just trying to figure out all the ins and outs of the middle school and trying to figure out what kind of goals and different things like that. One of the things that developed as a principal and within my leadership team is we kind of revamped our RTI process, and so we developed a team called the Storm Team, kind of just like the problem solving team basically, but we call it the Storm Team. And we revamped our PLC grade level meetings. So we have a leader within each of those grade level meetings, and then that leader then participates in a STORM meeting that we do once a month. And we kind of basically talk about all of our students that are, through tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 with either behavior or academics. And then those notes and all that stuff that we talk about, then we bring that to our leadership team where we can kind of discuss on a whole, and then obviously we bring everything to the staff. But in saying that, we kind of basically, the three things that we wanted to focus on this school year was building relationships and community, and then we have teaching and learning, and then we go into the social emotional part of the school. And I'm hoping we can kind of keep those goals so far right now. I think this is something that we'll look at for next year, but one of the targets that we wanted to look at is just like with the building relationships is, major referrals. We focus a lot on our minor referrals. Obviously with our major referrals, those were our biggest thing, and kind of seeing how can we focus on that, and, SVMS has always had the PBIS system within it. So, I do like the PBIS, I did that back at my other school, and so we're hoping to keep that and just kind of revamp that and keep the staff involved and get the students. One of the new things that we did this school year is kind of have our family meetings, which is our morning assemblies. And during that time, we're able to talk about all three of these goals with the students as a staff and as, a team within the 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade. So, I kind of divided up our goals and our aspirations through each semester. In that first one, so right now we're on target with all of those things. We recheck all of these within our leadership team. The other biggest thing that we changed within that is that we really didn't have very much of community involvement. So we have, we just had like the Phoenix Center from Springfield, they came in and did a training with us, which was really good. We have a check-in, check-out system that we kind of revamped, kind of get involved. We have the church, we have a food pantry, kind of basically involving some of our homeless students and kind of getting more involvement with that. So that's been really nice, getting people from the outside to come in and work with that. The second thing was just on teaching and learning. This is kind of, to me, a new thing because I'm really looking about how important is FastBridge being used within our school, and is it something that is working? We also have IXL that was purchased for our building, trying to see like, what are those things? I'm still kind of in questioning the leadership team, just kind of seeing like, how are they using it on a daily basis? Because we are spending money for that, and just where the teachers at. So we've been having a lot of strong discussion with that. We do have improvement, as you can see the scores we did fall, winter, and then lastly we'll see spring, and just seeing how much are the teachers using that within our reading and our math, and staying on target with that. This has been probably one of our biggest discussions that we have within our STORM team and our leadership team, concerning our kids on tier 1 and tier 3. I did talk to Bob, and so we have several students that, because we're tracking so much, that are failing. And I don't wanna push them on to Jonathan in high school, but what are we gonna do with them? Because if they're failing 8th grade now, they're not gonna do well next year. And so we are, 4th quarter, gonna hit them hard. We have basically a restrictive program that we're starting with them, through the whole day, just kind of monitor them and get them passed through, like passing time, PE time, and all those different things. And then they're gonna be focusing on the work that they failed and getting them, on target, meeting their needs. So that will start 4th quarter. So that's a good thing, a positive thing. The social emotional thing
Will
has
that,
been,
can I ask real quick,
Yeah,
will
sure.
that happen within their classroom, or are they pulled separately to do those?
so what we've
catch-up
done is we've take all of their extracurricular activities out, so they have, they're on
So
an
they
8,
fill in?
yeah, so they're on an 8-period day. And so what we did is we're taking them out of 3 of those periods, and then during those 3 periods, plus their electives, so basically 4, is they'll be working on, closing that gap area, because obviously they're not learning, they need help in language arts, writing, and math. So focusing on those areas, and then the other areas will still go to their core classes. So,
Will that be done through the special ed teachers, or?
no, that'll be done through just the regular ed teachers.
Okay.
And then we have a sub coming in that will work, and she'll come in and work with the students, keeping them on target. And then plus our social workers leading all of that, tracking too, so.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're
You had
fine.
Social emotional, so.
Yeah, you're fine. Right then, I think it's just something that we're still cultivating. I think this is something that they've already know. I mean, the district is already focusing on these areas, and I think it's important, and we're still implementing it. We have the goals that we're focusing on through that, and that's, like I said, that's a continual discussion. I think it's just something that we'll definitely keep on here. I think especially with middle school, it's just really tough because you deal with a lot of kids that really are figuring out who they are themselves. And, I mean, the biggest thing that we focus on right now is self-awareness right now. A lot of things, what we're saying and what we're doing is the biggest thing. One of the things that we're gonna revamp next year is we have found out that our win time, which is the RTI time, is not really beneficial right now. And it's not working, so we're creating a whole schedule piece just within that win time that's focused. And we'll kind of just run it by trial next quarter. But one of the things that we're gonna implement within that wing time is an SEL program itself. And, talking about those things, how do we communicate to our friends, or, bullying, what is bullying, harassment, all those different things, and try to focus on, then we'll focus on the academic piece and the enrichment piece of that. But I'm excited about to see how that'll go, but, the teachers are all on board, just been really active within the school and really change and, giving me information and trying to see what's best and what we can fit for our kids, so.
Maybe more educational for me. I saw in the password scores for math in 8th grade, it went from like hundreds to single digits. Is that just a change in scoring, or?
I think it's probably a change in scoring. Cause that shouldn't be that low. I'd have to ask, cause I think it's the change how it's graded within the math program itself. The 2.8, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Probably should be 218.
Okay.
I will ask that, cause
Yeah, I think that's a decimal point.
yeah, it's a decimal point.
And then we can look, I guess we're probably set, is it May or June, where we can, that'll be presented, our whatever assessment you're presenting from fall to spring, and we can get those updates. Do we do that in May or is it June? I can't remember, I'd have to look, we'll look
I
back.
don't know if we'll have, May's an early meeting, so.
Yeah, it might be the June meeting, okay.
So my only thing is, and this is great, and I appreciate all this, Jonathan, coming in, or, yes, we have two Jonathans now. I'm talking about middle school Jonathan. So I look at the other three and
I never grow up.
I'm looking at the other three plans, and I'm just looking formatting wise, because one of our goals has been to kind of have some consistency through things, and if we're presenting to the community, so they're all, whether you have someone in the primary, you have someone in the high school, you're gonna look at the same type of document, but of course, everything's gonna be different. So, and I value that you have this social, emotional piece in yours. Is it possible to create your sections to be at least titled the same as the other three? Do you know what I mean?
I do, but I don't, I think I'm really familiar with
Culture,
it.
learning, and systems, so yeah, all of your SELs don't be culture.
Oh, okay.
See, so they're kind of all patterned the same, but you're gonna have an extra piece that's social emotional learning. You can keep that, cause that's valuable.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Well, actually, I got this format from the last, principal for, this was the only one I found,
Okay.
the middle school, so I was just cultivating
Oh, no,
what
no,
they
no,
had,
that's
so
fine.
with items to it.
You're great.
As far as consistency too, the one thing I was gonna call out is the high school has like completion dates, and none of the other schools have that.
Mine's probably updated because I've been filling it in as I go, so when I started at the beginning of the year, none of those were filled out.
Yeah.
So
It's
those
just,
are
it's
just
nice to
updated.
see if we're hitting the quarterly and the twice a year checks too, so.
Then we could go on to intermediate.
Mine follows the same pattern with the culture, learning and systems, and I'm just gonna point out one section, or the big points in each of those. So on our culture section, we really, are looking at tracking our referrals, so we have a weekly memo that goes out to teachers every Friday, and we track bus, minor and major referrals on there, so that the teachers are just aware of what our number is, and then we're addressing it in our behavior meeting monthly, like if those numbers are spiking or, celebratory reasons, like for example, yesterday we got to celebrate in our building because we've only had 2 bus referrals since November 30th, like that's a big deal for me. So we were able to like point out those positive happenings along the way. And then one of the things I'm really looking at, and as a building, it's been a little bit difficult to move, the pendulum on this, but like the tier 2 interventions has been a struggle. We implemented the Power Half Hour block, which is amazing, but we have a lot of kids in tier 2 interventions, and it really should only be your bottom 10% of your population in tier 2. And so trying trying to hone that number, and yes, we have that whole block of time, and if you want to get, well, my group's only 4, I'm gonna put 2 more kids in there. It makes sense, but you really wanna hone in on those 4, so that you can build their scores up. And so like right now, we're at the higher end with like 15 to 17% of students receiving tier 2 interventions, and I really wanna get it back down to the 10%, which is where it should be, and then focus more on our tier 1. So if we have a bunch of kids, for example, if we have 17% of our students that are falling within that 0 to 10% of our population, then we need to refocus on what our tier 1 instruction looks like. So it should be consistent, high quality tier 1 instruction, as opposed to we're gonna pull out all these small groups. Small group is amazing, and we definitely need it, and you produce great results with it, but you wanna maintain it for those kids that need it. So I'm trying to focus on getting just the 5 to 15 to really hone in around that 10 for the tier 2. And then we are within the 1 to 5 for tier 3 interventions, and those tier 3 intervention students are the ones that would go forward to move towards like a special ed referral if we're not seeing the progress and growth on those students. So we're luckily, we have Valerie to really support us with that information, but I think relying on Valerie has given us the opportunity as teachers to like not be as invested in the numbers, and that's where we just keep putting kids in tier 2, not knowing how many kids are in tier 2, if that makes sense. So we're working on that. And then in our learning section, trying to make the best use of FastBridge, and again, I think we're using Valerie as a crutch on this for her to tell us, just because it's so much, the teachers just don't have a lot of time to like figure out the new system. So when FastBridge came, FastBridge gives you enormous amount of information, and it's not the easiest to navigate. And so for you to ask a teacher to sit down for even 30 minutes to look at their data, it's a lot, because there's so much data. There's like 5 or 6 different tests that you can look at. And so using Valerie to really instruct us and guide us on pulling out the information that we need, and then teaching teachers how to get what they need without having to get lost in the program. So that's what we're doing more in the learning section. So I'm anxious to see, I know Jonathan had a chart in his that told his growth. I can tell you exactly what we see right now, but I hesitate to put the numbers out, and we've talked about this as a staff, even in our conference room, there were posters up about it. Our numbers look really good for, between our fall test scores and our winter test scores, and we were celebrating specifically 3rd grade, like their test scores, they skyrocketed, it was amazing. But I'm almost like, oh my gosh, that means, our next testing period, we're probably not gonna see that growth. So it's almost like you're afraid to celebrate those moments with them, but we will be doing that, and it's actually on our leadership agenda today to put a date on the calendar to review the FastBridge data. And then in our systems, our biggest is the standards-based grading. Like next year we'll be fully implemented with it. With 5th grade, I feel like our 4th grade teachers have done a really nice job, that they've all worked with standards-based grading before, so it was really easy for them to come in all fresh and new, but they've worked with it. I think our 5th grade teachers are gonna need more support, and like we've got the standards addressed, but like creating the rubrics that go along with it. It's very time consuming, and neither one of them have worked with it in the past. Very open to it, but it's a whole new system for them. So I think they're gonna need a lot of support with it next year, and we have a team ready to help, but it's just time consuming and different. That's our biggest thing on there.
But that should be fully implemented, you said, at the end of next year?
Yep, so we did, 3rd grade was implemented last year, 4th grade was added this year, and then next year, 5th grade will be implemented. And there are mistakes on the report card, it drives me crazy, so I don't know if you've seen it, but like, so, all these report card companies tell you that it's real easy. No, it's not. They tell the teachers it's really easy, but then there's somebody back there that's putting in the work. So like I put in all the standards, and like there's 4 standards on there that are repeated, like writing is on there twice, and it just drives me, I can't change it like until next year, so it drives me nuts. But it's all in our core, and so it's really unique being such a small district that we have the power to change that, which is really awesome, but it's a lot of work.
You had a goal around the 5 essential survey. What is the completion percentage on that? Do we know?
My building's a little bit extra because we do a lot for that. So, but I appreciate the teacher feedback really a lot too, and to get the teacher feedback, I have to have 8 teachers respond. I only have 11, so like, and I don't have any clue, so when I'm telling the parents, like, let me know when you're done, I can't tell if you've done it or not, I'm taking your word for it. Students, I can tell, so our students are like, they really should be at like 100% completion rate, but like, for example, a lot of our special ed kids, they don't get the questions, even if you read them to them. And then it's almost to where you're coercing them, and they're trying to please you while they're hitting, so right now, our student percentage of completion is like 93, teacher completion is at 92, and our parent completion, I think, is like at right around 30% right now. I think last year we were at 35, that's actually pretty good. That's around like 30 out of 100 and
Yeah.
some parents.
So is this goal based on like all 3 of them combined? Is that specifically targeting teachers or kids
It's
or?
all,
Okay.
and so like my building, is, when you look at all 4 of our buildings, my scores are the lowest from last year. And so like that's where everybody else is already moderately organized, so I changed ours to move to getting on board with the other 3 buildings to partially organized. Obviously, I'd like to be even above that, but just getting to partially organized would be better for me.
Thank you.
All right, culture-wise, I told my staff at the beginning of the year, let's get back on a roll with things. So bringing back our team building days, which is dividing up the kids K through 2, and they get to do fun things, during our 1:30 dismissal days. That's the first time we've done it since COVID stuff. Bringing back family nights, it's the first time we're back to that. So, building that back up again, we've missed that in the building, and, that was definitely turned into my beginning of the year speech of, let's get back to those things again and get back on the roll. So, it's been nice. We had a team building day today, and the kids just absolutely love it. Get out of the classroom and interact with other kids and other teachers, for a morning. So, that's always nice to have. Learning wise, I wanted to highlight the math. This has changed because of Go Math. Last year at this time, we talked about how Go Math was going away. Well, that's not true anymore. They have decided that they're gonna bring Go Math back, and they have changed the teacher, outlook, what do I wanna call that? Management system, how they manage things. They call it Connect Ed now. And they are also having an individualized learning called Waggle. So we're offering 2 new things in 23-24 school year. We have piloted numerous ones in intermediate and in the primary school. None that we're really sold on currently. They're doing Envision, they like it. But we're gonna continue with the pilot. We're gonna do big ideas, which coincides with middle school and high school. It goes all the way down to kindergarten, so we're gonna try that out next semester, but continue with Go Math with everybody else. So we're just gonna continue our pilot because Go Math is still going to be around. It's just not what we thought, so.
And is that what the intermediate still using?
Right.
I guess we kind of circle back, we had COVID, gosh darn it. But prior to that, we went to attendance centers, and our main goal with attendance centers was to make sure our 2nd grade was ready to meet 3rd grade needs. Our 5th grade was ready to meet 6th grade needs, and everybody was working together to make that happen. So now that we're back in session, are we able to have those teachers meeting up, and we're talking about expectations at the different levels, and we're all on track to progress to the next grade when it's time to progress?
We've not had vertical alignment meetings. We've discussed having those. We need to absolutely, start that back up again. Yeah.
But
That was
in regards to the pilot, we are working with the primary building.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was our main thing, when we went to attendance center, our main goal was that everybody was working, not necessarily same day, same topic, but that they're, every classroom is doing the same thing, accomplishing the same thing in a year, and that, your 3rd grade teachers have the expectation that these 2nd graders are gonna be at X level and have completed X, and that we're all on track together, basically, same with 5th into 6th grade.
The movement to standards-based really supports that too, just because the teachers aren't teaching, they aren't teaching the textbook or the curriculum that they have, they're actually teaching to the standards. So they know what standards they have to hit each quarter, so it really sets itself up for that too.
To align to that, okay. So sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you're totally fine, no problem. Another thing that we're piloting, Waterford, we've been using, even before I was there, some of the teacher of voice. Could we look at other things? Absolutely, I have no problem with that. So I've got 2 teachers right now that have been piloting, different programs. Last semester, they did eSpark, they absolutely loved it. Very much standard driven, they can choose, very easy for the teachers, but the management was awful. I've talked with them about the company about it, and it is not app-based, it is web-based, and our little kiddos, you know, they get on the web and send them to another location, well then they can't get back to where they're supposed to be, and that has become a nightmare, for a lot of our students. So, we're now going with, Age of Learning, which is ABC Mouse. You might have heard that before, so they have just came out with, individualized learning for students. So we're gonna try that out now with, like I said, a 2nd grade classroom and kindergarten classroom and see how that goes. And then last one, systems, constantly working on those Common Core standards, making sure, you know, we're hitting them and developing that scope and sequence. Like I said, getting back on that roll of, okay, let's make sure everything's getting done, let's make sure, these things are all in place, so.
Yeah, this is kind of, you know, when we did the goal setting 8 years ago now, 7 years ago, that was one of the big, you know,
Push
we
it from
didn't
the,
see improvement plans, we didn't always know where they were in the buildings, we had people questioning where they were, and it's great to have them all now, and they're aligned, and they're just beautiful, and they're working, and showing progress, so we really appreciate it as a board. I can't speak for the whole board,
Yes.
say that, we appreciate it as a board.
yeah, and just hammering home that part of, you know, we went to attendance centers for a specific reason, to make sure that we are aligning and our kids are ready for that next step, and they are where the next teachers think they should be. And I keep hearing about this big difference between 2nd and 3rd grade. Do you guys feel like you see that?
We were talking about it the other day, actually, just in general, just the expectations are so much bigger, so like, I think we mentioned as a 3rd grader, you're reading for enjoyment instead of learning to read, and so like you're, in 3rd grade, you're starting to read to understand like the author's craft and like really starting to hone in on like what it takes to understand a book comprehension wise, whereas prior you're just trying to figure out, you know, you're learning to read. So we were talking about where you go from, the picture books to the chapter books, and then, you know, basically in 3rd grade, you're learning division at this point now. And even in 2nd grade, they're starting multiplication, so it's just the expectations are, with Common Core, the expectations are huge, but the kids are showing and proving that they can, so when it's presented to them in the way that it is, they can.
And was that the conversation, remind me, was that kind of where we had issues with Go Math? Was that getting up into that upper grade level? Or is it worse at the lower grade? Am I confusing my stories? I was thinking there was an issue with Go Math as the kids progressed, that it instantly got a lot more difficult.
There's just a lot in the 3rd, I did teach with it 4 and 5, and there's just a lot of content there.
There's not a lot of practice, so like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like story problems and, application, but the application is like a 3-step problem, so there's not a lot of rote practice. So one thing I'm noticing, and like what she was speaking to earlier, like there's, like when we were in school, we had a science textbook, a social studies textbook, that was our curriculum. They don't really do it that way anymore. You can buy a textbook, but it's mostly a workbook and then 3 different online platforms.
Right.
So, and it's basically a marketing, in my opinion, it's a marketing thing where they can bill you for subscriptions every year. So you can't find a math program, that's our struggle, that addresses all the needs that we want, but you can find a math, workbook and then this subscription and this subscription. And so you have to like pair everything, it gets so complicated, and then they don't speak to each other, so.
So you think any of these other math things that you've piloted, are any of them looking beneficial, other than Go Math, or?
Like I said, Envision has been the favorite so far in my building. I haven't talked to Lacey about it yet, she's been using that, we just started that in January. But Mrs. Weitzel and Mrs. Berkey and Mrs. Miller also uses it in kindergarten, and I've watched their lessons and interacted with them, and they definitely like it.
I reached out
More
to
so.
Warrensburg, and I think you reached out to somebody too. What was it that, was it Meridian? Okay. They had received some award, some area schools had received some award in their elementary buildings. I don't remember what that
Warrensburg
was.
did.
Yeah, so I contacted a couple of their elementary teachers, and asked them what math program they use and what they like about it, and how much you have to supplement, what programs you purchase with it.
And it wasn't Go Math.
It was Envision, but Envision at my grade levels, they liked as is, but Envision at your grade levels, they did supplement with other programming, so it's just, there's different needs in those grade levels, so it's hard to determine, but both programs, what was that award that they had won? Like, I don't know, it was published in the paper, and
I
so we
remember
reached out
seeing
to both those admins and asked what they used.
I just have high hopes for Go Math, so I guess seeing it have to be replaced already is sad, but
It
I
has
want the
really big
kids to
components to
benefit.
it, so like, Miss Burkhart used, it's, called their PMTs, personal math trainer. And it's just a lot of work to get the kids trained on how the language works, but once you get that common language down, they get it, there's a lot of frustration built in between it. It's one of those things where if you're using it consistently down the road, there's a lot of success with it. But if there's a break in between, then there's a lot of frustration.
Alright, well, I have high hopes then that you'll find something that we all, or they all enjoy. Mr. Meadows had to step out for a moment, so. Did you say you haven't done any of the meetings together yet, as far as the grade levels? Okay. Alright, I think we're through school improvement plans, and again, like Martha stated, thank you, it's very informative and good for us to be able to take a look at.
If we look at our board goals, that completes
Along
one
with-
there.
yes. We can go complete some of our goals.
Yes.
And like I said, if we could set to meet maybe in, when our meeting in June, if we can see the, whatever assessment, if we're looking at Fastbridge or whatever, I know we had that down as one of our goals as well, to look at twice a year, so. Okay. And, sorry, on my wrong page. From here we go into new business, I guess, unless you have anything else with your report? No? Okay.
All right, first up, middle school girls basketball cooperative. I've included the co-op agreement and the IESA document that would both need to be signed. I asked the board if you had any questions or you wanted to see something different in the agreement between the districts to let me know. I didn't hear anything, so I would recommend that you go ahead and approve the cooperative, and we'll get the document signed and sent over to Tri-City, and they will act upon it at an upcoming board meeting.
Okay, so motion to approve the middle school girls basketball cooperative with Tri-City and Sangamon Valley as the host school for the 2023-2024 and 2024-2025 school years. Motion made by Josh Hilbert, is there a second?
Second?
Matt Wood, call roll please.
Wood,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Silver,
Yes.
Leeper, yes.
I've also provided you with the 23-24 school calendar. Teachers will start on Thursday, August 17th. They'll do 2 days of teacher in-service, 17th and 18th, and the students will start on Monday, the 21st.
That
Oh,
seems
it's right.
refreshing.
It is later, but it's a whole week for the first week, so it's a half day the first day though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but not till the
21st.
The 21st.
The fair's actually over, yay.
fourth week of August.
And looking ahead, when after the board elections and everything are over, I'll put out a tentative calendar for next year, but I would kind of like to maybe do an early August meeting, like around the 9th for a normal meeting, because of the amended budget or the, new budget. And the time that we need to have between, and then also I kinda wanted to stay away from the start of school, if we could. It just makes things a little bit easier, I think, for all the
You have to have
administration.
60 days from, to do the, wait, which would we do in August? Is that,
The August is
August 9th.
the regular budget, and
oh, and then
I would
you've got.
present it in, yeah, then I have 30 days
Okay,
that has to set
right,
for public viewing. So,
okay,
the September board meeting would probably be the following 20th, probably.
yes, so that one would be regular, you were just saying.
Yeah.
Do August a little early.
Usually we flip flop one of those, either we do a later September and do a regular August meeting, but I kinda wanted to stay away from the start of school if we, or, close to the start of school if we could, so.
Sure.
But I would recommend you approve that calendar.
So motion to approve the 2023-2024 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Matt Wood, I'll second.
Ooh,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
And the last thing, the FFA would like to attend National Convention again in Indianapolis. It is it's November 1st through the 3rd of 2023.
Okay. So motion to approve FFA to attend the Indianapolis National Convention, November 1st through the 3rd.
So moved.
Motion made by Matt Wood, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hilbert, is there a cost to the district for this?
I don't believe that there is. I think that, everything's funded through either grants or through the,
That's what I thought, I just didn't know if we really had to have roll, if it
Well,
was
there-
just a,
I didn't know that it gives an opportunity if somebody
If somebody-
would just assume not allow them to go, that would give them a vote,
okay,
I guess.
so, roll please.
And I wasn't honestly sure if it cost the district anything or not.
Okay,
Guerrero?
yes.
Hilbert,
Yes.
Leeper, yes, Wood.
Yes.
All right, anyone have anything further? Our next regular scheduled meeting is March 15th at 6 p.m. and I need a motion to adjourn.
So that's
Motion made by Josh Hilbert, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
7-18.